dying in your beds many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom?
To Anti-Tyranny News Radio here on UCY.TV. Thank you for joining me this evening. Quite a few things that we're going to cover. There's an article out of greenbiz.com talking about Motown is poised to come roaring back. We'll kind of cover that article a little bit. Maybe see what your outlook on Motown is. One from Time: ebooks go out of fashion as book sales revive. And this one is based out of UK book sales. But it's also something that I've been talking about. A lot of the ebooks that I've had for actually quite a long time. I've been buying the physical book. Because there's a great importance on having the physical book, and I've been doing that for a long time. Most things I had on ebook are now in physical form, because it's one of those things we understand how things could be manipulated, and I think one of the best, examples of that is when Jesse Ventura had his conspiracy theory show, and they did the one on the police state FEMA camps, and it didn't re-air because they were re-airing every previous episode before the new one each week, and they didn't re-air it, and then people that DVR'd it had it erased off their DVRs, and you've seen a complete censorship of that episode. And I think that was, for a lot of people, a awakening sign. If it's digital, it can be wiped out easier, remotely. And it's better to keep physical copies of great writings. So I'll go over that here in a little bit, but we also had one I've seen out of CNBC. Robot with $100 Bitcoin buys drugs, gets arrested. So I'll cover that one. And one thing I wanted to play and go over this. It has to do with civil disobedience. The outlook of a lot of libertarians anymore is, civil disobedience. I will fight the system because, well, a lot of these laws don't have actual basis under the Constitution, even though I don't believe that, If your authority is derived from the Constitution, then let's go back to that and show how that this goes against my right under your, definition of being a authorized authority. You start looking at basically operating outside of the system. Albert Camus, I'll probably end up paraphrasing it more than likely, but the only way to truly live free in an unjust world is to live so absolutely free that your very existence is an act of rebellion, something to that effect. It's you being you. It's you expressing your natural rights to, sustain your life. Adam Kokesh has recently put out an interview with Tom Hyland, and it's titled "Building Without a Permit, Driving Without a License: The Tom Hyland Lifestyle." And this is a example of what a lot of libertarians, a lot of old Ron Paul supporters that have gone more libertarian in their philosophy and their lifestyle. This is kind of where I've seen a lot of these people heading. And, when you look at a lot of things in life, a lot of people do that anarchy libertarian type civil disobedience. How many people drive the speed limit? When you break that arbitrary number and you go over that speed limit, that is you expressing a form of libertarian, I'm not harming anyone. I can operate at this speed safely. It's one of those things that you are committing anarchy right there. And anarchy is not no rules, it's no rulers. That means that as long as you're not harming other people, just because you're doing, 60 instead of 55 or 65 instead of 60, does not create some great risk. So, it's one of those things that people do commit acts of civil disobedience and don't even realize they're doing it. But let me get on to this clip here, this interview.
Hey everybody, this is Adam Kokesh here in Lamy, New Mexico, just a little ways southeast of Santa Fe, and I'm here with the one and only Tom Hyland, who you may have heard of from his Right to Travel Civil Disobedience in an article that he wrote about 10 years ago, a long, strange
trip. I did borrow that from the Grateful Dead, but attempting to travel free in America is a strange trip to embark upon.
And we happen to be sitting in his home that he built himself out of bales of hay. That's right. We're in actually a straw bale home. And, you might not know from looking at the beautiful decor that the walls here are actually made of straw bales, at least on this
straw bales
wing.
Over 2 feet thick, post and beam that holds up the roof, like living in a thermos bottle. Very comfortable way to be.
And this was about a year-long project to build this original home here. He's got this huge wing going off in the other direction. It's a beautiful homestead here, if you can legally qualify it as such. But most importantly, Tom, what did you do to get government permission to build this building?
Well, what I didn't do was get government permission to build this building.
You didn't get government permission? You didn't get a permit? You didn't get building codes, inspections? You didn't do any of that?
No. I I drew the sketches, and a friend of mine said, Tom, I'm going to show you how to build a house. And I am also proficient with power tools, so he had faith I knew what I was doing. And I sketched up the plans on how to draw this place, how to build it, and we proceeded to build it. When the house became about 24 feet tall is when an inspector rolled up the driveway and asked me what I was doing. I said, I'm building a house. And he said, yes, I've noticed that. You need a permit to do that. And I said, I do not need a permit to do that. And he said, oh, yes, you do. And I gave him a letter that I wrote to the Director of Construction Industries Division of New Mexico, a letter that I had written 7 or 8 months earlier, in which I quoted the code itself. And it turns out that you, as an individual, if you are not involved in the business of building houses, are allowed to build your own single family dwelling or addition without a permit. And that inspector never returned. And I asked him, have you ever read the building code? And he goes, no. And I said, how long have you been a building inspector? And he goes, about 10 years. I said, you've never read the code? No. I said, well, here's an extra copy of this letter, and you read this, because he says, I'm always getting harassed by my own construction industries inspectors. I have a ranch out there, by Roe Mesa. And so he, I think, was ultimately delighted to meet me. He didn't call me back and say thanks, but I never heard from him again.
But hey, you certainly made his job that much easier.
Well, yeah, he didn't have to come in and red tag me and pull me out of here in chains because he actually read the instructions. And the letter was written to his boss, and she never responded. And I'll give you a copy of that letter so you can read it for your own. It makes, it's about 2 pages long. But
we'll be able to share this with you as well. Now, just to be clear, this is New Mexico state code for building that says if you're an individual, you're not a professional in the construction industry, you're allowed to build a residency on property that you own.
That is true.
Now, it's not true everywhere in the country.
Even if you own a farm or a ranch. In New Mexico, Construction Industries Division, it's called CID. And
that's a state government agency.
In New Mexico, if you are in the house building business, then you have to follow the line, you have to call in the inspectors, you have to fill out the permits, and you're building a house for somebody who doesn't know how to build a house.
Well, the silly thing is, even with that, there's an easy way around it. If you really wanted to avoid that, you could just say, well, hey, Mr. Construction Guy, I'm going to deed the land to you under contract temporarily, and you're going to build your residency, and then you're going to give it back to me. I mean, it's a really like a silly way of the government trying to control your property.
They make a lot of money.
A renter.
They make a lot of money. I mean, they will tell you it's always about safety. Everything's about safety, and you're going to build this house to code and safe. Now, I own the house. I paid for it. There's no mortgage. And of course, I built this house to code.
Well, you paid for the property. You didn't have to pay for the house.
I paid for the ingredients that built it. So all the parts were paid for, and then I assembled the pieces. And the only thing that, the only permission that has to be asked, and this is because once a year I get a tax bill, a property tax bill in the mail. And this comes from the Santa Fe County Treasurer's Office. And it's a pretty hefty bill. I pay about $4,000 a year property tax
that goes to
for the privilege of
here.
Living in my house. And they have a thing called Land Use Department. And the Santa Fe County wants to see how I am going to use the land. And they insist that if you don't show us the plans and we don't allow us to approve them or disapprove them, we'll bulldoze whatever you have built. And we'll march you off the property at gunpoint. They don't mind telling you that. And so I have tried to perfect allodial title. And I don't know anyone who has ever done this. I've I've heard of rumors of this. I've read books about allodial title. I went through the entire procedure, and the treasurer at the time of Santa Fe County took my allodial title papers and crumpled them up in front of me and threw them into a trash can and told me I only have time to talk to people who love their country. And anyway, I don't get along too well with those folks, and I continue paying that tax bill every year under threat of being marched out of here at gunpoint.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
And what do they use that money for, Tom?
A lot of it goes, I hear, for schools. These schools...
Because you have, if you live here and you love your country, you have to care about the children, Tom.
Well, of course. It's all for their safety that they learn what we need them to know. And the major lesson that they learn in school is obey and don't question the teacher. So I just see, I have a really foul attitude about public schools, folks. Sorry about that. Government schools.
Public schools are great. You make school open to the public. That's awesome.
Yes.
But when you fund it by theft, maybe you introduce some problems in terms of reinforcing that racket. Now, Tom's lifestyle here and what you understand now of how we came to be here in this amazing home is really important. I think a lot of people miss that you can opt out of so much of the system if you simply point out, hey, look, I have this right, and you make yourself more trouble than you're worth. Essentially, they'll leave you alone. Not on the property tax in this case, but what Tom has done here is chosen a line for himself that he is going to walk, and he's stuck to it. And he's done it in another amazing way in terms of the right to travel. Now, when you understand what a racket government is and that borders are simply lines drawn on a map by politicians in circumstance of history, the whole concept of the government controlling the right to travel in any way seems really absurd. The fact that you need a driver's license, you need permission from the government to operate on the King's highways is really absurd. That you need to pay a registration to simply own a vehicle. And as Thomas pointed out, you don't really own it when you register a vehicle.
Well, no.
Right?
The problem is we unwittingly, we hand over our title of origin. We go down to the motor vehicle department with this. If you've bought a brand new car, or even if you are financing it, you get a title of origin, and you go to the motor vehicle department, and you hand this over, and they give you a fabricated document called a certificate of title. It might say state of New Mexico, state of California, state of whatever. It's a state of ignorance, and now you have a certificate that says that state they own your car, and you cement the deal with a driver's license in your wallet and a license plate on the back of your car and registration in your glove box. So the right to travel, which is a true reality on planet Earth since caveman walked from one cave to, Fred went to visit Barney. He was allowed to travel without asking for permission. And at the turn of the century, the early 1900s, when automobiles were in proliferation, at that time there were some Supreme Court cases that defined accurately what is the difference between traveling in your private automobile and delivering goods and paying passengers for a living to their destination. What is the difference between commercial delivery and traveling in your car? And these Supreme Court cases have never been overruled. They still stand. Now, what happened was around the early 1920s or so, everybody's driving a black Model T. If you could have any color you wanted as long as it was black. And the local motor vehicle department said, hey, folks, would you like us, the cops, to help you find your stolen Model T? Why don't you put this plate on your car and put this little driver's license in your pocket. And if we find your stolen Model T, we'll call you up. And so people did this for free. At first, it was for free. And then after about a year or two, they said, well, these plates are costing a lot of money. So they started charging people to doing it. And everybody thought they were supposed to register their cars and get driver's licenses. And this is how they were, and it was all about safety and all about, like, we'll find your car. So this is how it all began. It was deceptive, and it was not a nice thing to do.
And crazy how today it is so taken for granted. It's sort of an assumption. I mean, kids, when you turn 16, you don't even think about it. It's like, oh, good, now I get government permission to drive.
I get permission to drive. And see, the thing is, when driving, if you look in the law books, the state code books, every state has almost the identical laws regarding driving. It says driving is the paid activity, the transportation of goods or paying passengers for a living. So in 2004, 11 years ago, I went to the Department of Motor Vehicles in Santa Fe, the head department, and I met with the head director of the department, and I had the book open on my lap, and I showed him the differences between what is a commercial driver and what is a traveler. Though they didn't have that in the book at this point. They don't tell you what a traveler is. All they do is define what is a driver. And I said, I'm not doing this. And he said, that's your opinion, sir. And I said, but if you look at the top of the page, Mr. Director, it says definitions. These are not opinions. These are definitions.
Well, it's also the opinion of the Supreme Court in this case.
Yes, and also there are still those Supreme Court cases that have never been overruled. So I closed my account at the Motor Vehicle Department, and the next day. And then I received a death threat. The next 24 hours after that, the first time in my life, the phone rang, and a man promising me death. And I could hear the sound of typewriters and noise and office clutter in the background. And I was wondering, is this coming from the Motor Vehicle Department? And I kept him on the phone long enough to annoy him, where he slammed the phone down on me. Because I was really wondering, should I pray to the Lord now? Anyway.
So this was just a bureaucrat who realized that you were, by doing what you were doing, essentially a threat to his entire source of income, right?
No one has ever gone into the Motor Vehicle Department headquarters and willingly turned over a pristine driver's license with no violations, no outstanding fines. Nothing. No one has ever closed their account at the Motor Vehicle Department. People go in there on their hands and knees begging to get their driver's license back. But nobody has ever gone in and said, I don't want this anymore. And I said, give me back my title of origin. And it got real quiet then. And they said, we don't think we have that anymore. So anyway, I went 3 years without a driver's license or plate on my car or anything, except I ended up in jail. And after some of my very...
hold on, you got to tell that story, because this was just for a night. You got arrested, you got processed, but what precipitated that?
Well, I got arrested for not having a driver's license almost immediately, and not having a plate. There was no plate on my car.
So you got pulled over?
I got pulled over, and there's no plate on my car, and this cop says, where's your credentials? And I told this lady where they went. And she calls in a supervisor, and I tell him where everything went, and they pulled my car up on a hoist and rolled it away and held it for ransom, and said, you're going to get a driver's license, registration, insurance, all of that stuff. I refused to do that, and by the time about a week or two later, I arrived in front of the Santa Fe County prosecutor. Art Michael was his name, and he was astounded. And he said, you are the first person who has ever come in here and done what you have done. May I shake your hand? And I said, okay. And I shook Mr. Michael's hand. And he said, amazing. And he dismissed all charges. A couple of
Now, hold on, that didn't really get you out of your jam. He didn't
no,
give you
no.
your car
Well,
back,
a
right?
jam. No, I had to. A whole month went by, and my car was locked up, and I wrote a couple of letters to a tow truck operator who was the classic stereotypical tow truck operator. He looked like a very dangerous man.
And I can tell you from my experience that I think what you mean by that is that they have a certain like emotional detachment from what they're doing. Like the same way that cops and soldiers say they're just following orders, the tow truck operator who's really like stealing people's property, whether it's righteous or not on behalf of someone else, has to be like, I'm just doing my job.
Well, picture just you're driving up, you're towing people's cars away, and you're talking to people who are so bummed out beyond belief.
You're helping ruin people's lives.
Inconvenienced. So devastated. And this is all you do is deal with these bummed out people every day, and the cops are your best friends.
Because they protect you.
Who's going to get called up next? Like, God, I hope Officer O'Reilly calls me up. I need a tow job today. So this guy was professionally grumpy and menacing and snarling, and he had Rottweilers on the property. Everything you imagine a tow truck operator's living circumstances would be like. And I wrote him a couple of letters, and it was letter number 3 that he said, "Come and get your truck." And that was because I told him, I said, "Listen, pal, you have stolen my car. And I don't think the city of Santa Fe is going to hop on your rescue wagon and defend you in a court of law for what you have done."
And you showed him the record with Judge Michael.
I told him that I don't have a driver's license. The facetious reasons why my car was stolen in the first place is they're trying to infer that I am a driver when I am not. And this blew the guy's mind
enough that he
called me up and says, "Get your car out of here." And I got my car out of there. And then but I had to buy another truck in the meantime. I bought some beater, but I was driving around in another pickup truck because I live way the hell out in the boonies. So and then about a month or two later, identical circumstances, a state cop pulls me over because one of my headlights was out, and I knew it was out. And I was blinking brights off and on didn't want to hurt anybody's vision at night. And this cop gave me tickets for all the identical excuses once again. In the next month or two, I wrote.
But what happened? He handed you tickets and let you drive away.
But he let me drive away because it was about
license. No, you didn't have a license plate.
I had no credentials whatsoever.
Did you tell him your name?
But I told him who I was.
You didn't give him your social security number or anything?
No.
So he just a name on a ticket.
But he saw that he probably found my name somewhere. And he knew this is that guy that gave up his driver's license.
Did you sign the tickets? Or did you refuse to sign them?
I did sign them, but it was the typical,
it was like, what are you going to do to enforce them, right?
Well, it's 1 a.m, and he allowed me to drive home. I didn't.
Right. If you don't sign, then you're not consenting.
Then I'm going to be walking home in the dark, and there goes my truck back over to the tow truck operator again. So I'm driving home in my car, and then I wrote this cop a couple of letters. Prepping him for his performance in court when he testifies against me. And I also called Art Michael as a protection witness to testify in court why he dismissed the identical charges against me. When I called in Art Michael as a witness, the judge recused herself from the case.
And nobody would hear it then, right?
No one wanted to hear the case. And the cop quit the police force. He became a security guard.
Now that might be the greatest accomplishment of this story. And as you know, we're generally safer without the police. And as we've pointed out in Sharpstown, Texas, they fired the police force and said, we're going to hire private security, and they had a 61% drop in crime. And this is why we're telling you now, if you see a cop, and Tom, that being confrontational or negative in your demeanor never helps in these situations, right? I mean, how would you describe when you're talking to either a judge or a bureaucrat or a cop? What's your attitude? What's your conversational strategy?
I'm very relaxed. I'm always I even sometimes put my thumb on my wrist to feel my pulse. I just like, okay, I'm calm. And you have to be aware and also know the law. And I tell these directors at the motor vehicle department and these cops and these judges and these prosecuting attorneys what the law is, how I understand it, in a very calm voice.
And what we've been saying is that it would be really nice if every cop would quit their job. And we'd be so much safer. We wouldn't have government enforcers running around imposing these exploitive policies on us. And that's really an incredible thing that you confronted a cop in such a way that it led him to do that. Now he still wants to be a security provider. Just not.
Maybe he's doing that.
And so this is why we're saying from now on, if you see a cop on the street and you want to give a greeting, instead of flipping them off, instead of increasing the aggravation and entrenching that negativity, peace sign simply means we love you and we wish you'd quit your job. And Tom was someone who, with that demeanor of going in with peace, going in calm and simply assertive, he was able to actually get a cop to do that.
And it happened. And then the third incident was the cop who pulled me over after I was a block away from my car already, walking away. And he goes, hey, you don't have a seat. You weren't wearing a seatbelt. And I'm like, I'm already walking down the street. Isn't it kind of late to be discussing seatbelts when I'm a block away from my car? But I'm talking to this cop, and he detained me, and he wanted all of my credentials. And I told them where those credentials went so long ago. And he was on the radio, and then the lights went off, and he didn't even wave goodbye. He just drove away.
Oh, crap. That's that Tom Highland guy.
And I'm just standing there alone now, feeling, is it something?
Am I still detained?
Is it something I said? So this was, anyway, I had the feeling that maybe I had something tangible, something real, something is happening here. What it is ain't exactly clear. But anyway, so
I think it's pretty clear, and I think this is the lesson that I really want to share with our audience. You know, people who care about freedom. And this is a fun thing. I think a lot of people who are watching this right now might be thinking, well, geez, if everybody just did this, we could be rid of the entire government roads racket. And it's true. It really has that power. But even more importantly, as Thomas pointed out, you can live this way. And if you know what the risks are and you know what the rules are, you can live way more free and relate to the state as a free, beautiful, independent human being with inalienable rights. And sometimes when someone puts a gun to your head, if a mugger comes to you and puts a gun to your head, you're going to give him your wallet. But if you can talk him down and say, hey, how about I just give you $20 and you walk away? That's still a major achievement. And it comes by saying, you're a thief. This is invalid. And setting that premise as Tom has for himself so clearly from the beginning.
Let it be known that I was the only man in New Mexico, I think, that did this. All of my friends were applauding. They thought it was really cool. They were cheering me on, but nobody gave up their driver's license. And I was just a pesky little gnat buzzing around that they were waiting to swat at the appropriate moment. I now, folks, I have a driver's license. I have a plate on my car because I was thrown in jail after I actually filed a case against the state of New Mexico, against the governor and the Supreme Court and about 35 individuals. And this case went down like a lead balloon. I was very naive to imagine that I could enter their little playroom and that I expect them to punish themselves. That they would go, my God, you're right, Tom. We are guilty of extortion and racketeering and car theft and all kinds of things. Here, have lots of money and we'll never do this again. Bam! No, they're not going to punish themselves. They laughed me out of the room. And about a week later, I was in jail. And the judge said, if you want to sit in jail for 3 months, that's fine. Enjoy yourself. Or I'll let you leave right now and you go down to the motor vehicle department and get a driver's license. And it was about the saddest day of my life, but I did that.
It's just the end of one road. And I've been in similar situations in my civil disobedience and getting in trouble. I've taken plea deals. You know how that works. And it's just the end of a beautiful road of rebellion and of really just asserting yourself. And I think is another really important lesson for people to get out of this is that it takes civil disobedience takes a certain commitment. And the stuff that I've done, you might see is, okay, Adam did this, it was performance art, he got arrested, he faced a charge, and it was done, chapter closed. And in a sense, it's a lot easier than what Tom has done in taking this on as a long-term project that lasted many years of saying, I have this right to travel, before finally saying, okay, I'm not going to fight that battle anymore. But he is still living a very deliberate, very free lifestyle out here. And there's an important lesson for people to be able to take from this to say, I need to choose that line for myself and live better as a result. Now, Tom has decided that he's not going to fight that particular battle right now, but he's living here free on a home that he built with his own two hands, that he doesn't pay any licensing for or didn't get permission to build. And so he is able to take all of the lessons and all of that experience and say, this is how I'm going to live deliberately now. On top of that, everything that you did in that period kept not only proved a very valuable lesson for anybody who else who is ready to try this, or when we get to a critical mass of people who want to try this in an area or in a state like New Mexico with a relatively small population where you can have an impact on state policy through civil disobedience, through that kind of, just making the racket too expensive for them. And you probably kept a lot of people from getting hurt during that time by simply distracting those assholes.
Well, absolutely, Adam. But the most sane activity that we can pursue is to educate people. And I wrote an article that is on the internet. You can go to Google.
We will include the link.
Okay, and type in Tom Hyland story, Hyland. And there's the story I wrote because I wanted to educate the local area, Santa Fe. It was printed in 2 parts in a newspaper about what I'm going through, what I'm doing, and what I'd like to accomplish. I wanted people to be outraged and light torches and get pitchforks and walk to the courthouse.
But instead they cowered and looked up and were like, wow, I wish I could do that.
But it didn't help, except that the article has been spinning around the internet for over 10 years now.
And the significance of this, I think everybody who looks into right to travel, and there are a lot of people doing different experiments with this, living different lifestyles, traveling in different ways. We have our own friend Mike Soffin in Florida who drives a vehicle with his VIN covered up, with his license plate covered up. There are different ways to assert this, and I know that he's read that article. So a lot of people have been influenced by that and gotten that out there. So I encourage everybody to check it out, read the story, share it with people, and then maybe if it's right for you, there's a stand to be taken where you live.
Like I say, if 100 people went down to the motor vehicle department,
it was just 100 in New Mexico,
and closed their account at motor vehicle department, how about if 1,000 did it? Like I say, when hundreds and thousands of people say, hell no, we won't go, it's very interesting what could happen. And I was just one little guy trying to do this, but like I say, education. If the more people understand why this behavior occurs, why do we just robot-like go to the state and ask permission to travel? Think about it. Permission to travel? I'm going to get up and go to the bathroom. May I please go to the bathroom? This is ridiculous. You don't ask to go anywhere. You just go, if you harm no one. So here we are. Welcome to my house, and welcome to my world. Now, it's time for my boot heels to be wandering.
If it's possible in New Mexico, I understand there are probably a lot of people thinking, how do I do this? Is there a way you'd like for people to be able to reach you if they have further questions, or if they want to get together and maybe storm the DMV here in New Mexico?
If you find my article on the internet, then you will certainly find my phone number. And if you're interested enough to find the article and read this educational piece that I put together, it was a primer. I wanted I wrote this for folks who just didn't know this stuff. And if you find that article, you'll find my name, you'll find my number, and we can talk. I'm not shy.
Ladies and gentlemen, Tom Highland and the Tom Highland Lifestyle.
Okay. Tom Highland again, that's Hyland. Now, this again is a perfect example of civil disobedience and also knowing the law. Now, of course, he gave up the battle because, well, when it's only one person, there's only so much, how far you can take it before, well, they're basically going to cage you up until you do what they want. And that's another thing when it comes to civil disobedience. We need more people that are willing to shut down the city when others are arrested, definitely when they're doing civil disobedience. When they are following the law and committing civil disobedience because the law enforcers don't know and don't follow the law. And that's what this was a very clear case of. Under the law, he was not required to get a driver's license or register with the state because he was not doing commercial business. Now, when they don't follow their own laws, that's because we do expect them to punish themselves. That's why the outpour of the community is very necessary. So when you're doing civil disobedience, I think Adam Kokesh found himself in the same place that when he was locked up, there wasn't a large gathering. There was a gathering, but the outpour was not there. And I think that's one of the biggest threats to civil disobedience, that parts of the population see someone ruffling the feathers and they go, don't do that. Don't rock the boat. Because those people are still living a rather comfortable lifestyle. And we do realize that we do have the ability to live a rather comfortable lifestyle. Definitely when you do know the law and you can operate within the law and live a freer lifestyle, as Highland's done, Tom. And when you look at any situation where someone that stands their ground and is able to push back the system, it's only when they have a support group are they able to stand their ground. That the system uses a monopoly on force to be able to afflict these type of intrusions and extortion from the public. And like we've seen at the Bunny Ranch and the ongoing struggle up in Oregon with the mining, it's when people are there to back up those that need it, that they're able to keep their property, keep their freedom. Because without that, we will lose the fight. If we're not willing to stand up, even if we don't, let's say you think that Mr. Bundy might have racist tendencies, which that's been debunked. But let's say you did believe it. But he doesn't want to force this upon you. He doesn't want to actually commit any type of racist acts against you. He just wants to live on his little farm and be free and not have government kicking his door down. And he'd be willing to stand up for you. Well, then that might be someone you should stand up for, because when he's gone, and the rest of the people that would stand up for you when government decides to kick down your door and take your property and possibly your life, that's exactly what will happen. Now, talking about the BLM and the Oregon miners, there was about a day ago, there was a video posted to Western Journalism, Oath Keepers Protecting Oregon Miner from BLM News Brief. So, play that.
The Bureau of Land Management is in another land dispute, this time with the owners of an Oregon gold mine. The BLM has issued a cease and desist order to Rick Barkley, the owner of the Sugar Pine mine, to remove his equipment and buildings by April 25th without any official ruling by the courts.
The BLM, I have a stop work order. I'm not allowed to do anything. I'm supposed to remove my possessions from this mine, close up this mine, reclaim the surface, and leave before I even get a hearing.
The BLM wants the miners to tone down their operation to stay in line with the regulations.
They were doing a level of activity that required more than a basic mining claim.
The BLM claims that the mine has no surface rights to the area, even though miners have been in continuous operation since the early 1870s, which predates the BLM bureaucracy by many decades.
This is what we date our claim to this mine from this original location notice.
Mr. Barkley has called the Oath Keepers to protect his land and his constitutional rights from the BLM.
That is the sum total of their purpose to be here, is to protect my rights to due process and preserve my property until such time as I get my day in court.
The Oath Keepers of Josephine County is present at the mine as a security precaution to ensure the mining claim owner's Fifth Amendment constitutional right to due process is not violated by the BLM. This is not a standoff with the government.
There has been no confrontation. There has been no implied threat, overt threats.
This is a basic property rights issue of the government trying to take control of land that they don't have proper documentation for. Does the government have the right to those minerals? Should the government override your use of your land? We will continue to monitor the situation.
So, basically the same news. There is no standoff. Let's get that clear. There's been a lot of people that try to go around. Oh, there's a standoff. It's once the Oath Keeper showed up, BLM backed off. Sheriff came out and said that if anything was to start escalating, that he was going to step in between the BLM and the miner to make sure that it would not escalate. It seems, by what the sheriff said, that he too believes that the miners should. I'm not trying to put words in his mouth, but it seems like, first, BLM needs to take it to court and come with a actual court ruling. But again, he probably wouldn't have done anything if Oath Keepers didn't show up. I don't know. We do see people finally starting to get bolder. First, Bunny Ranch, then this, and luckily none of them turned into, a Waco or something, which was a fear of many. And since we're kind of on the topic right now of just your individual freedom and your ability to opt out, one thing that you should have the right to opt out of is vaccinations and your child's vaccinations. No one should be forced into putting something in their body. Definitely when they decide to always tell you what you can't put in your body or what age you're allowed to put something in your body, but then turn around and say, well, you have to put this in your body. I'll play this from Next News Network. And
breaking news right now, Gary Franchi here for
again, Next News, Gary Franchi. And I don't see the time it was posted. Okay, here we go, though.
The Next News Network, California mandatory vaccinations have just passed in California in a committee. If at first you don't succeed, try again. A 7-2 vote was just made, and now, well, if you want to opt out of vaccines, zero public school, you cannot attend public school or even private school. There still appears to be a concession that was made to homeschooling parents, and in that regard. But this is very fresh, very new. I will put a link to the article in the Sacramento Bee in the description so you can get all the specific details. But I want to get this out to you right away as it is happening right now. Mandatory vaccinations in California. This is a serious violation of your rights to raise your children the way you want, your body, to make decisions on your own body, your choice. Well, check out the link. I'm Gary Franchi for the Next News Network.
So, I actually expect to see a fleeing of California because there's many anti-vaccinators or pro-choice vaccinators out in California that are not going to be happy with this. And again, that's why I've said homeschooling for a long time now. One, because I know the public school system is just complete waste, really. Private school systems, depending on your personal religious or spiritual beliefs, may be a choice. But I think homeschooling will turn out better results than institutionalized type schooling. And there's a lot of statistics out there that show that. The one thing I don't like about the homeschooling, though, is the social interacting. Now, I understand in the public school system how the social interacting is actually not always the most positive because of the way schools and a lot of institutions operate. But we should, if you are a homeschooler, have a lot of interactions. There's one thing about teaching, I guess, your kids, a ideological belief, right from wrong, but they are still going to have to interact with others that have different beliefs, and being able to teach them how to, believe in what they believe, but be able to get along with others that don't believe what they believe, and how to, separate, your ideology from your way to socially interact with people. And I think we have a problem with that as adults too. But again, I think a lot of that goes back to our youth and our schooling, and just the social direction that it seems like the social engineers have led us down. And it goes back to divide and conquer, which I always talk about. It's a very successful technique of the social engineers and the people that seek control. And they've used it successfully for decades, for hundreds of years. Okay. I'm going to cover this Time article here real quick. E-books go out of fashion as book sales revive. And I hope to see more of this definitely here in the U.S., which I don't have extreme confidence in seeing, but I still hope to see it because I think it's important. And it says here, again, ebooks go out of fashion as book sales revive. UK bookstores report increased demand for physical books. British bookstores have good news for bibliophiles, reporting that more people have been buying physical books recently. What's more, sales of e-readers have apparently slumped, according to their reports. Waterstones, a UK bookstore chain which also sells Amazon's Kindle, told the Financial Times that demand for the e-reader has all but disappeared. Sales for physical books at Waterstones were also up 5% last month, which the company chalked up to its store renovations and allowing store managers to take more control in order to tailor inventory to local tastes. Meanwhile, Sam Hussein, the chief executive of Foyles, a London bookstore chain, also told the FT that sales of paper books were up 11% this Christmas over last year. That sales of Barnes & Noble's e-reader, the Nook, were not as impressive as one would expect them to be. The rapid growth of ebook sales has quite dramatically slowed, and there's some evidence it has gone into reverse, said Douglas McCabe of Ender's Analysis. Though it's hard to say what exactly has caused the apparent slowdown of digital book sales, this does spell good news for fans of physical books in the UK. Waterstones now plans to open a dozen new stores this year. Okay, now, when we look at ebooks, I don't know about you, but just the amount of time I sit in front of a computer screen is enough to just drive me crazy, let alone reading my books on a computer or an e-reader or anything like that. Plus, when it's in physical form, I know the words aren't going to get changed around on me. I know chapters aren't going to disappear on me. I know that my book's not going to be censored. Unless they start kicking down everybody's door and book burning, and, you know, by then I think we're all in for it anyways, and reading it might not be the first thing on your list of things to do. But when it comes to book burning, it's going to make it easy if everything's on e-readers to make books disappear. It's going to be easier to make the truth disappear. And I've thought about this too for a while, that I think we're going to see a reversal of a lot of things. And one of those things, I think we're going to start seeing Blu-ray or DVD of things like InfoWars, maybe eventually this broadcast. We're going to see a lot of the internet news sites start putting out magazines or papers. I think we're going to go to physical form again. Because I think with technology evolving the way it is, I think a lot of people are starting to shy away. And I'm noticing it more and more. Even though we read that, Facebook still wants to follow you, a lot of people are just completely disconnecting. They shut down their social media. They rarely use the internet. A lot of people use things like Start Page, which I use. And I've told many people about Start Page. I think it's a tool that allows you to not be tracked as easily when you're searching things on the internet. Definitely when you're in the news field, you sometimes might be researching something that you don't want everybody to know, because it would potentially hurt your research. We know the couple after the Boston bombing that were arrested because of search terms on Google. And then let go. Oh, I closed something I didn't want to close there. I'll have to find it here in a little bit. I do have one here out of greenbiz.com. And this one, 2 steps forward, why Motown is poised to come roaring back. And I don't know if you would agree or not, but I'm going to read this here. I've seen the future, and it's Detroit. That statement may seem audacious for anyone who reads about or visited the city recently. The storied epicenter of the automotive world, America's richest city, just a half century ago, has traveled a bumpy road for decades. Since the turn of the century, it suffered the financial default of General Motors and Chrysler, the exodus of tens of thousands of residents and businesses, inept or corrupt city officials exploiting debt, a declining tax base, and in 2013, the nation's largest municipal bankruptcy. Today, the city of 700,000, down from 1.8 million in 1950, has 90,000 vacant lots and 70,000 abandoned buildings, as well as a 36% poverty rate and 23% unemployment rate, both the highest in the nation. Motown is arguably a city that has run into a ditch. So why am I hopeful? There are hundreds of initiatives, from tiny startups to massive public-private partnerships aimed at jump-starting the beleaguered city and putting Detroit squarely on the road to recovery. Not as its former industrial self, but as a hub of innovation. It's a model for how to retrofit a city as a hotbed for sustainability, economic, social, and environmental. That's my conclusion from a recent visit there to speak at Powering Progress Together, a day-long forum convened by Shell Oil, part of a series the energy company has produced to highlight the nexus of people, mobility, and technology in cities. I also spoke at a similar forum 2 years ago in Houston. The Detroit event brought together 250 or so business, civic, and nonprofit leaders to discuss how the combination of technology, social innovation, and government leadership can effectively address sustainability challenges in cities. This isn't just academic. Shell Oil Company President Marvin Odom pointed out that by mid-century, the world will be adding the population equivalent of 2 new Detroits every week, 75% in urban areas. How will we build new cities and retrofit old ones? Will influence how people live in a growing, evolving, and adapting world. Detroit was the perfect canvas to paint a portrait of what's possible. A lot of big changes are happening. Dan Kincaid, director of projects at Detroit Future City, told me during an interview in his office in the city's News Center neighborhood. A few hundred feet from historic Fisher Building and the former General Motors headquarters. An integrated approach. Kincaid's organization is at the forefront of where Detroit is going. Funded by the city's Indigenous Foundation community and working closely with city officials, it is one of the largest civic engagement projects in the United States, involving hundreds of meetings and 163,000 interactions, survey respondents, conversations, and the like, as part of a multi-year planning process. In 2013, informed by all that public input, the group published a strategic framework and an integrated approach to transforming the city and its neighborhoods. It aims to balance land use, the city's existing infrastructure, its network of neighborhoods, its existing building stock, and the capacity of civic organizations and government, all while spurring jobs and economic growth. The idea was that we weren't there to make decisions for people or tell people what to do in the typical way you see a master plan, but rather to provide the frame through which people can make decisions, says Kincaid. It's a hat trick, to be sure, and less hobbled cities have stumbled trying to address all these things amid a diverse and unruly group of stakeholders. But Detroit has several things working in its favor. One is Mike Duggan, who became the city's mayor last year. The affable mayor, a former prosecutor and healthcare business executive, and the first white mayor of this majority black city since the early 1970s, has been juggling the basics of keeping the lights on with more aspirational goals of growing the city's economy. I'm trying to get the buses to run on time and the street lights to come on and the ambulances to come, and I think we're making progress, he told the Shell audience. Beyond that, Duggan seems to be using every tool at his disposal to lure business back, leveraging a network of business and foundation connections he's built over his career. Among his goals to encourage more people, especially young people, to live in town. On the right track, the business community seems to be stepping up. Former race car driver and billionaire Roger S. Penske, owner of the auto racing team Penske, the Penske Corporation, and other auto-related businesses, led a consortium of business people that raised $1 billion to build the M1, a 3-mile streetcar system down Woodward Avenue connecting the riverfront downtown and the New Center Midtown areas. Duggan, when he was in the private sector, was another sponsor. It's the first urban rail transit line in the United States to be built and operated by a private nonprofit organization, with most of the funding coming from private investors and foundations. In addition to Penske, our Quicken Loans founder and chairman Dan Gilbert and CompuWare founder Peter Karmanos. It's quickly become a development magnet. Nearly all the buildings along the M1 corridor are being renovated, and there's a 6 to 8 month wait list for some of the condos being built. The mayor isn't letting anyone leave town, cajoling companies thinking of moving out of Detroit. A few weeks ago, for example, he convinced a major bank to scrap plans to consolidate its operations in the suburbs. Instead, it will consolidate them downtown, a net gain of 800 jobs for the mayor and his city. Growing a food hub. One high leverage plan is Eastern Market, which dates to 1891, but is being revitalized and expanded to become a food economy hub, with wholesale firms utilizing new district-sponsored kitchens to prepare products for resale. Dan Carmody, president of Eastern Market Corp. Since 2007, who previously headed the Downtown Improvement District in Fort Wayne, Indiana, has taken on the role of economic development for the Eastern Market neighborhood. It's a good fit in addition to his background in city planning. Carmody once worked in a craft foods factory. On a urban tour that preceded the Shell event, Carmody offered a detailed vision of the market as most inclusive, resilient food hub in America, addressing food access, nutrition, education, economic development, workforce training, job creation, community development, and more. It's a multi-layered, multi-generational view of urban food movement and how it could become Detroit's next big industry. Now, I kind of want to stop here and kind of go over this Dan Carmody. And, further up in the article, I was talking about, private investors doing this. And, if Dan Carmody has anything to do with it, again, he was previously... He previously headed the Downtown Improvement District in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Well, this is a city that I used to live in, and I don't live real far from it, but I don't live in Fort Wayne, Indiana anymore. I haven't for a while. But what they've done, they built They took the baseball stadium and moved it downtown at the taxpayers' expense. And then they got private investors to invest, around half of the money to build condos. The city would help out with the other half to get them down there. And then they'd build these condos, and then the private company would profit off of those condos. So half of it gets paid by taxpayers. Oh, and then investors pull out, and then you got vacant bulldozed lots sitting there. Then they start building, and then financing dries up, and then, they build a little bit more. And all this ends up coming at the taxpayers' expense because, to get all that, they had to buy out any of the remaining businesses and the remaining properties that were in the area. So what they've really done in Fort Wayne, Indiana, has basically robbed from the poor, kicked them out of the downtown area to make it a good place for the out-of-towners to come in. Well, it will eventually bring up but you have to get people that are willing to come. For a baseball stadium, it has some success. Yes, it does, because there's people still willing to go pay money for something they paid taxes to build. Um, Watching sports is not one of my things. I was glad that, well, I didn't have to help finance that because I no longer live there. Um, that's why I won't live in a city anymore. But what they're trying to do is push people in the city, and you can link a lot of that back to United Nations. And, they said previously before, what we can't get done through the federal government, we will just attempt all that stuff at the local level. And they've done that a lot, where they do come up with regulations that don't abide by their own laws, that go against their own laws, that say they can come in and basically tell you can't do anything with your property because, there's some type of insect that lives there and you might kill it. Or there's a fish that might live in that pond that you built that now you don't want anymore. Therefore, you can't do any type of construction here anymore. Once it starts degrading, you'll just have to let it rot and sell the property, or we'll just come in and take it. It keeps amounting to more and more, and you see it with the BLM. You see it with local government. Again, with Fort Wayne, Indiana, they work with a group that builds these walking trails, and I know you've heard this years ago in different news stories in different areas of the United States. They build these walking trails, and everything along the walking trail becomes some type of nature reserve, basically, even when they build it right along someone's backyard. And they turn whole areas into a watershed. And you start linking all these groups back to these world organizations that link to the United Nations. And it becomes pretty evident what they're doing. And Fort Wayne's got so bad that I believe they've corrupted Allen County completely, because I've seen these groups that have worked with Fort Wayne with these walking trails, where they've gone beyond that with the county and other counties and other cities in the area to expand these walking trails. Look, people could walk all the way from your city to one and be safe. Again, for your safety, kind of like Tom Highland was talking about, always for your safety. And in the meanwhile, they take people's property rights from them by going, oh, well, that's a watershed, or that's a nature preserve, and they basically take everybody's rights away from them in the name of safety and preservation. When I watch them build a lot of these trails, and they destroy most of the natural stuff, and then maybe put in a few trees, and then let all the weeds grow back in, and maybe in 20 years you'll have some of the natural trees and natural, berries and stuff come back, but they do a pretty rough job on it. But then, your backyard that's further away from that trail can't be touched. Pretty hypocritical. And talking about hypocritical, Bill Nye put out a tweet about he was going to be on Air Force One talking with Obama to take action on climate change on Air Force One. He's going to fly around on Air Force One so they could come up with a strategy to tell you what to do, not to pollute. And people called him out, and the only response he seemed to have was basically a little jab at climate change deniers. And I think it's funny because most people aren't. I don't meet too many climate change deniers. I don't think I've met any climate change deniers. most of these people, they call climate change deniers. And remember, at first it was global warming deniers. Well, yeah, it depends on what you're talking about when you say global warming. Man-made global warming, yes, we deny that. Yes, we think that man has some effect on weather to a point, but not the extent that they're saying. Not when a volcano that goes off puts out more emissions than we do in like 10 years. And then sun flares and other things that are completely out of our control. And if you look at the history, we've had droughts, we've had ice ages, we've had droughts, we've had ice ages, floods, droughts, ice ages, and it goes on and on. It doesn't stop changing. What we're saying is you taxing us, you preventing us from doing things while you fly around on a 747 jet doesn't solve anything, but it makes you more of a puppet and it gives you benefits over others. And we realize that. We understand that. And we're calling you out on it. Okay. I have another clip here if I can find it. Hopefully I can find it. I thought I had it up. Maybe I can find it in this information hole. Okay, here we are. This one was from, I actually was going to play both of them. I don't know what time we have here. Oh, we're kind of getting a little late into it. I'll play this one first. This one's Creating Miracles with Weed. And this is from We Are Change. And there was another one, 420 in Colorado with the real Rick Ross and CBD medicine. And this is real important because a lot of people think, oh, weed and getting high. And why would you give that to kids? Well, there's hemp oils that have like almost no THC, cannabis oils, and weed itself for even adults that want to smoke it, that for medicinal uses will not get you high. It's not meant to get you high. It won't get you high, and it's CBD oils, and THC is only one cannabinoid that is in cannabis. And there's strains out there that don't produce enough THC to ever get you high, but produce the other cannabinoids that have that medicinal use. And there's a lot of evidence coming out to support that. And so I wanted to play this.
They did scans on her, and the tumor was hanging by a small portion of tissue. In the next 3 days, she passed the tumor. That's called apoptosis, something that cannabis is very good at doing, instructing cancers how to die. So, yes, the miracles are all the time with us. We see them all the time. We see them literally every day. Yes, my name is Mark Pedersen. My organization is CPN Institute. Also, another organization is ECS Therapy Centers. That's what we do. We're a not-for-profit. What we do is we provide help to people way of counseling. We counsel people. We provide dosing information and different things of that nature as well. Also, too, I make cannabis oil. I make cannabis oil currently mostly for pediatrics right now, range from the age of 1 on up. I currently have 8 pediatrics I care for, all terminal, and a number of adults as well. So I make cannabis oil. I make FICO, full extract cannabis oil.
Now, we know the FDA is going against anyone who's making any claims of CBDs helping people. Without jeopardizing anything legally, can you tell us some of the effects that you personally saw with individuals and their effects, and some of the stories of people's lives being changed in a legal term so the FDA can't get you?
Well, all of our kids it's all totally legal what we do for our children, and basically our children, I gift the oil to the children. The parents are too poor to be able to enter any dispensary, so they they basically would have to die if I hadn't provided it for them. I could tell you stories about little Nova Lee. Her parents came from Austin, Texas. She was born with an illness called schizencephaly. She only has 24% of her brain. She also has a non-functioning pituitary gland. For this, she basically started having seizures at 6 months. She's currently 3 years old, but her parents basically the only treatments they had for this child. The child only has 24% of her brain. Well, the only treatments was a drug that would cause permanent blindness, and the other treatment was to actually surgically remove 2/3 of what she has remaining in her brain. The parents opted instead to take and haul all their earthly possessions out and set them beside the dumpster. Pack up their little car. Hey, how you doing? Pack up their little car and headed for Colorado Springs. I was in touch with them in transit. We made up a regiment for the mom, and the mom picked it up, took it home. First dose stopped the baby's seizures. This is the surgeons in Austin, Texas said there was no physical way that the oil could possibly stop the baby's seizures. I've stopped pediatric seizures, another child, in as little as 3 minutes. And that's when there is no other drug that could do that, no man-made drug. The only thing it could have stopped would have been general anesthetic, and still the seizure activity would have gone on. Some of my children have actually been tested, and even at night, it even stopped nighttime seizures as well. So, shrank tumors. I can tell you the story about my partner, Regina Nelson. Her daughter came from Michigan. She was diagnosed with stomach cancer in Michigan. They wanted to remove 3/4 of her stomach. That was the only thing that they could do for her. Instead, she came down here, moved in with us down to Colorado Springs. After 3 weeks of being on my oil and on raw cannabis juice, we had to rush her to the hospital. She was having severe abdominal pain. She was vomiting blood and passing a stool. They did scans on her, and the tumor was hanging by a small portion of tissue. In the next 3 days, she passed the tumor. That's called apoptosis, something that cannabis is very good at doing, instructing cancers how to die. So, yes, the miracles are all the time with us. We see them all the time. We see them literally every day. It's far more than you ever see in the regular press. It's not out there. The real truth. Now, what I'm talking about, this is THC-rich cannabis oil. A lot of the press going on about CBD-rich oil. I make CBD oil as well, but what we find is that the children it's not as efficient unless a child has Dravet syndrome. Dravet is particularly effective. CBD is particularly effective against Dravet syndrome, which is only one form of seizure disorder. There are many, many others. So what we do is we use CBD as an adjunct therapy.
Because I hear a lot saying that CBD is kind of the miracle chemical within marijuana, but you're saying you're seeing responses with individuals if there's a little bit percentage of THC also mixed in with the CBDs?
No, actually, with predominantly THC. We use CBD as an adjunct, as a supplement. Actually, the CBD particularly beneficial when we're getting children and adults off of pharmaceutical meds, the withdrawal symptoms, which quite often cause seizures. The medications that these children and adults are being given for seizure disorder actually cause seizures. So getting them off, we have to deal with the cause that caused the seizure. We have to deal with the seizure. We have to deal with the drugs that the conventional drugs are given as well. And even in spite of all that, we're seeing miracles. Now, CBD, it has a lot to do with your endocannabinoid system and the way the cannabinoids interface with that. Phytocannabinoids. THC particularly mimics anandamide, where CBD particularly mimics another one called 2-HE. THC is particularly effective because it fits in the cannabinoid receptors, fits well in there. CBD does not. CBD kind of sits out of the way. It modulates and it works quite well, but the THC is actually what opens the cannabinoid receptors, so that makes the CBD work better. Cannabinoids must work synergistically to get the premium effect.
See, I didn't know that at all in any shape or form. So this is really, really good information. What kind of hurdles are you guys facing when it comes to regulations and big government?
Well, it's a continual problem, but our issue is more. It's more with the industry and the effects here. This is a very imperfect system we have. This is not legalization. This is just another version of prohibition. And the problem with that, I've already testified twice before the state here in Colorado since moving here. And the issue has been more and more controls, more and more regulation, making it more difficult. Trying to shut down the caregivers and shut down the local growers and people, the oil makers like me. The people we provide for will never step foot in a dispensary. Okay, 90% of the people in this state who really need cannabis don't have access because it's cost prohibitive. We've got to take and make it more legal. We have to make it legal, per se. The bill I wrote for the state of Missouri, the Missouri Cannabis Restoration Protection Act, there is no other bill like it in the country. My bill makes cannabis the same as any other agricultural crop. So we must make it this way if we want everyone who needs it to have access.
What kind of regulations and what kind of rules did they throw at you or other individuals who are trying to get this kind of oil out there to help people?
Well, we're continuing to restrict how many people we can take and treat. How many people, anytime you restrict access, you're making it where people can't get to it. Like I said, the reason why my kids have oil is because I'm giving it away. Otherwise they wouldn't be able to buy it. So we have got to have channels. We have to have the means in which we can get the oil to the people who actually really need it.
So what needs to get done, and how can people get involved to help you out?
Support my bill. That would help a lot. My bill is currently being considered in other states. The language for the Missouri Cannabis Restoration Protection Act is being considered in California, Nevada, Oklahoma. It's actually been drafted into a House bill in Louisiana. A number of different states are considering this language, considering what it would be like if we actually got what we really want. Cannabis is non-toxic. It will not hurt you. As an oil maker, I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. I'm a cook. I can teach anyone how to make cannabis oil. We can take and we can heal people of cancers and seizure disorders. You don't have to be a doctor to make that happen.
Can people find a copy of your bill online and try to introduce it in their local city council?
Absolutely. More than definitely. I'd be more than happy to work with people in their states, if possible. There are 16 states across the country that can do a direct initiative. States that can do an initiative, there are those who can do an indirect initiative, like Nevada. This is a means in which we can bypass lawmakers and we can take an initiative and we can put it on a ballot without their interference. This is a way in which we can bring about what we really and truly want in this nation, and that is to make cannabis truly legal.
Now, where can people find you, and is there anything else you want to say?
Absolutely. You can find us at cpninstitute.org. You can also find us at myecs.org also. I'll have to give you my card on that one.
It'll be in the description below.
There you go. It's a brand new one. Come here. Here. This is my partner, Regina Nelson. Bobbin here. Can you give me the URL for ECS?
myecsTherapy.org.
There we go.
Awesome. And is there anything else you'd like to say to the people out there?
Why don't you add something? Would you like to?
I think we need evidence-based public policy, and we need evidence-based medicine with this. But we need also to learn from patients. They're the knowledge bearers in this, and that's what we do. Is we go around the country as patients and we talk to other people. And we're hoping to develop a peer counseling group so other patients can understand how to really use this as medicine. That's what's important here. We're raising funds this weekend to help terminally ill children that we've been working with, whose lives have been extended and greatly improved because of what we've done. And we're ready to move forward. We're hoping...
We're going to have offices both in Colorado City, also in Quincy, Illinois. Why don't you tell them a little about that?
Yeah, we're opening 2 offices with the My ECS Therapy Center. We're currently recruiting peer counselors to work both remotely with people, and here in Colorado Springs we'll be opening an office in August. In Peoria, Illinois, near Quincy, we'll be opening in October.
And isn't it crazy how you're trying to help people, but you have to face the government who's trying to make sure you don't? Isn't that crazy?
It's absolutely crazy. We're looking at the restrictions in Illinois, and while they have a lot of qualifying conditions, you have to jump through a lot of hoops. It's a very expensive process to get there. That leaves out a lot of the population. In addition, we've not really focused on this as a public health issue. It is. Every single human being has an endocannabinoid system. Instead, we're looking at this as a prohibitionist issue, that we don't want to allow things like this. This has been a very awesome event. There's no violence here. There are no problems. There are people that are, have a healthy habit. And for those who need it as medicine, there are better ways, and they can be learned. And I want to bring in peer counselors and educated step up from bartenders so that our grandmothers and our mothers and our neighbors will come to understand that this is an essential nutrient that we need back.
We've seen many patients since we've been here today. And yesterday, just amazing number of people, chronically and terminally ill people, coming here asking, wanting questions, wanting to know about how to dose, wanting to know how to use these things effectively in their lives.
Now, that again was from We Are Change, wearechange.org, We Are Change on YouTube. It's an example of government stopping people from putting in their bodies what they choose when it has health benefits and ones that have been proven, which we've known for a long time. A lot of these seizures, cannabinoids, actually have a positive effect on the people, and they're able to almost completely rid themselves of the seizures. Some have went to from, over a dozen a day to maybe 1 every 2 months. And that's something that should be noted. But it's a business, really, for government to intrude on, the war on drugs has not stopped drugs. It has not stopped criminals, but it has allowed the government to intrude on people's rights and extort them for money. And that kind of goes into this next story, that it shows how quick government is to try to bust people for doing something that doesn't exactly hurt anyone. And this one just kind of blew my mind here, and it's from CNBC.com. And this one is robot with $100 Bitcoin buys drugs, gets arrested. This is the curious story of how a robot armed with a weekly budget of $100 in Bitcoin managed to buy ecstasy, a Hungarian passport, and a baseball cap with a built-in camera before getting arrested. The automated online shopping bot was set up in October last year by a Swiss art group. And I don't even know how to pronounce this. Menegrupe Bidenik as a art installation to explore the dark web, the hidden, unindexed part of the internet. Each week, the robot was given $100 worth of Bitcoin, the major hard-to-trace cryptocurrency, and programmed to randomly purchase one item from Agora, an online marketplace on the dark web where shoppers can buy drugs and other illegal items. The items were automatically delivered to a Swiss art gallery called Kunst Halle St. Gallen to form an expedition. The robot was christened Random Darknet Shopper, and its purchases included a Hungarian passport, ecstasy pills, fake diesel jeans, a Sprite can with a hole cut out in order to stash cash, Nike trainers, a baseball cap with a hidden camera, cigarettes, and the Lord of the Rings ebook collection. Perhaps unsurprisingly, the robot and his artistic creators had a run-in with the law. In January 2015, the Swiss police confiscated the robot and its illegal purchases. However, 3 months later, the Random Darknet Shopper was returned to the artist along with all of its purchases except the ecstasy, also known as MDMA tablets, which were destroyed by the Swiss authorities. The artist behind the robot escaped without any charges. This is a great day for the bot and for us for freedom of art. Okay, hold on. Robots are going to be allowed to get away with it. So artificial intelligence will be able to buy illegal stuff, just not you. Which, either way, is crap. No one should ever get arrested for not harming other people. And a lot of people will argue that the dark web has made a lot of these things safer. The Swiss authorities confirmed that the artist and the robot would not be charged. We decided the ecstasy that is in this presentation was safe and nobody could take it. Nick never intended to sell it or consume it, so we didn't punish them. Thomas Hans Jacob, a spokesperson for the Swiss St. Gallen police, told CNBC on Tuesday. He added that the artist had not informed the police before undertaking this project and that the authorities had heard about it from the media. So, just another example of how war on drugs in any country is nothing more than an excuse. And that kind of leads into this last one that we're kind of right on the edge of time frame here. Let me see how long it is exactly. It'll leave us with a few minutes at the end of the broadcast, so I'm going to hurry up and play it. And this is 420 in Colorado with the real Rick Ross and CBD medicine.
Surprisingly, I'm feeling a lot better than I usually do. But anyway, in this video, we talked to the real Rick Ross. We met the people behind Charlotte's Web and also people who are extracting marijuana for medicine to help little kids with horrible ailments and diseases. Meanwhile, they're facing tough government regulations and FDA rules that are just waiting to pounce on them and destroy them when they're making a difference in this world. Now, of course, when you come here, there's a lot of people getting high. I mean, these people have thought of every possible way in the universe to get high, and they're getting high here. But not just getting high, there's a lot of other people here who are using the powers of marijuana, of cannabis, of CBD oils to help cure people of horrible ailments and diseases. We talked to the people behind Charlotte's Web, and one of the most fascinating things I found is that they have to be extremely careful in how they word their product. If they say their product helps somebody in some way, shape, or form, which we know it does from all the documentaries and all the documented scientific facts, if they prove that, if they say that on the record, they will be shut down by the FDA. So they have to say it's a nutritional supplement. And that's why they're producing hemp CBD oils under the Charlotte's Web medicine that helped so many not only kids, but also individuals around the world with these horrible ailments.
We produce the CW Botanicals line of Charlotte's Web hemp.
Now, when it comes to CBDs and hemp, what are some of the medical benefits that people can get from this substance?
So CBD has a patent held by the U.S. government that classifies it as a neuroprotectant and an anti-inflammatory, and people sort of use that for whatever they find it helps them for. So there are people that use our product for epilepsy, there are people that use our product for a variety of different ailments, but we just sell it as a dietary supplement that you can take for, daily with your vitamin C.
What are some of the biggest kind of hurdles that you think people have to go through if they want to get CBD oils?
Well, in a lot of states, it's really hard to get our product. You either have to have come to Colorado until recently when we started shipping out of the state. You had to drive all the way to Colorado and either illegally take it back with you or move your entire family here, and that's, a lot to ask of someone. But the people that we're trying to help are, they're pretty desperate for anything at this point. So
we also talked to individuals who are risking their own personal safety by providing CBD oil to children with horrible ailments, and they're organizing victims together. And this individual was one of the most inspiring people that I met here all throughout 420 in Denver.
Yes, my name is Mark Patterson. My organization is CPN Institute. Also, another organization is ECS Therapy Centers. That's what we do. We're a not-for-profit. What we do is we provide help to people way of as little as 3 minutes.
Now, of course, the full interview will be up tomorrow on youtube.com/wearechange. Do not forget to subscribe. The man told us a lot of amazing information that I never heard before, and he's doing a lot of great work. So if you're considering helping people or getting involved, definitely contact him. The links will be in the description below. And the last person we ran into is the real Freeway Ricky Ross, not the fake one that we confronted yesterday. What's your connection with the Illuminati? But the real one that worked for the CIA importing cocaine into this country. The war on drugs is really a war on the American people. It's all fake. It's all set up. They set up the problems. They set up the military-industrial complex, the prison-industrial complex, the medical-industrial complex, and the only reason it runs is because it's all set up and it's all a game, and we know that for a very fact by talking to Freeway Ricky Ross. Yesterday we were with the fake Rick Ross, and we asked him why did he take the real Rick Ross's name, and of course he didn't answer. His security guards just ran away. But Rick, you have a reputation that your story, everything you went through was insane. Not many people in the mainstream people know about it, but why did Rick Ross take that name? Why did he take your name?
He knew that I was a legend in the streets that nobody knew about. They knew about the name, but they didn't know about the person, what I looked like. So he was fat and, I ain't gonna go there, but he didn't look like me, but he was able to trick everybody because I was on the underground. I had to keep myself hidden from the public's eye. So he knew that, and he took it and ran with it.
Yep. And your story, it's legendary, what you've been through. Uncovering the most darkest parts of the U.S. government. How does it feel, like, being able to finally get out and finally tell your story?
Well, I didn't know if I would ever give out. And shout out to my man, Gary Webb, for having the courage to put it all together. Because I didn't put it, a lot of people think I put the story together, but I didn't. Gary Webb put it together. He found me in prison, told me what had happened, and told me that he was going to put it out, that the CIA was involved in my drug empire. Yep. So it's just crazy, mind-boggling. And I didn't believe him at first either.
Yep. CIA, they use people like Rick geniuses that exist throughout the hood, and they strive for excellence. You know, he's a businessman. If he would have been running a Fortune 500 company, if he would have been brought up in a better neighborhood with more opportunity, he would be running one of those Fortune 500 companies right now. It's about the ability to process information and do critical thinking. And the CIA uses people like him all the time so they can facilitate what they need to get done. You know, and that's why we got to get this message out, get his book moving, and get his TV and movie deals happening right now, because many people just don't know about this story, don't know the reality of what happens in our society and our government.
Yeah, just for people who don't know, the U.S. government started the war on drugs, but then the CIA started bringing in drugs, and then all of that would expose.
Which one first, though?
Exactly.
Did they start the war on drugs first, or did they start bringing it in first? We don't know which one that was.
All right, so I'm not even a stoner, but I had an amazing, incredible blast being here for 420 in Denver, and I've been running into so many We Are Change fans and We Are Change chapters as people are trying to mess me up here doing this outro video. I'm starting to think, I don't know, maybe there's something in this medical marijuana plant that makes people conscious and look into alternative independent media. And there's been nothing but We Are Change fans and chapters all over the place. Are all of you just stoners who are watching this channel? If you are, let me take a test. Click the like button. If you are a stoner, click the like button. We have to do a test to find out because again, there's so many We Are Change fans. It's been incredible just being here and meeting everybody from all over the world who came down here.
We Are Change, wearechange.org. Now, that's 420 out in Colorado, and the real Rick Rouse story is something that if you do not know it, you really need to look into it. Look into Gary Webb and look into his death. It's one of those things that if you don't know by now that the government or parts of the government, because not everybody in government's bad, we always have this kind of broad overlook of you work for the government, you're a bad person. And it's not true. And it's because there are good people and that things do get leaked out. You know, there's many unknown Edward Snowdens in the government that are still leaking things. And things like Jade Helm 15 and things like this all get leaked out because there are people that are concerned. They actually had honor in freedom. And they thought they were doing the right thing, and when they get in there, they realize that they're being used and taken advantage of, and they want the truth to be out there. Now, you know, with the hemp oils and stuff like Charlotte's Web, which is one of those that is not high in THC, does not contain anything that's going to get you high. It was produced, and it got the name from a girl named Charlotte that they found out that this stopped her seizures, and it was able to be successful without having THC, because the other cannabinoids were able to effectively help take down the seizures. So, you know, this is something that should be looked into more, and so many people still have that stereotype of marijuana, the stoner, lazy person that sleeps on a couch in a basement eating Cheetos. And it's not true. You know, we do remember Olympic gold medalists that got caught smoking a bong. And we still have the stereotype, though. I guarantee you he was doing that before he became a gold medalist. So this whole stereotype stuff should really be flushed down the toilet. And when you have these people that are giving the life the ability to live their life back to these young kids that are experiencing seizures. And then, of course, you get the all these pills and things that the doctors give, and their seizures get worse. And then all of a sudden they give cannabis oil to them, and seizures go down to like 1 every 2 months, 1 every month, instead of 12 a day. To deny that is cruel and unusual punishment for the committing of no crime. And again, this has to go back to societal change. And Mahatma Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world, and we need to really be that change. The problem is we're always told things are bad, and then we're told they're good, and then we're told they're bad, and we have to have an understanding that we don't know all, that we can't just judge, oh, well, they smoke marijuana, they must be a pothead, and, it's bad stuff. When you don't know their circumstance, and when, a lot of these people aren't even smoking it. They're getting the oils from it and using it to treat an ailment. And to just broadly associate them with some pothead, and I'm talking stereotypical pothead, then you do a dishonor to other people. There's, I think, a shift in society, though, where a lot of conservatives would call this liberal, allowing pot. Well, no, it really isn't. It's having an understanding you don't know all. And I think it's also funny when I hear these so-called religious people. I don't know what you might consider religious, but so-called religious people condemning people that even do it for medical reasons because it's bad, because they're just told it's bad. Not knowing any of the scientific or research behind it, and understanding, the research that your viewpoint on it is based off of is flawed. Like the one I heard when I was younger, it kills brain cells. And realizing that study came from them putting gas masks on monkeys and just feeding it to the smoke to them until they died. Realizing, hey, they lost their brain cells not just because it was marijuana, it's because smoke inhalation. And the research behind it was all flawed. Because if we blindly follow what a so-called researcher says, we don't know. But when you actually see yourself that these people that were having seizures, these young kids that were having these seizures, aren't having the seizures 12 times a day anymore. That one can be called research. That two can be called facts in front of your eyes. These aren't actors or actresses. They don't have money. They don't benefit from it other than they're getting the word out that, hey, this is helping our kid be able to live her life instead of being stuck having seizures every 5 times a day or 12 times a day. Well, we're coming up to the end of the broadcast here. I want to remind everybody, go to ucy.tv and click the UCY store tab. UCY is partnered up with Amazon, and they have put together their own little store under Amazon with the same great deals. You're still getting through Amazon, the same checkout and all that, but at the same time, UCY gets a kickback to cover operating costs and everything. So go to ucy.tv, click the UCY store tab. Great prepping gear or even camping gear, but always be prepared. And they even got radiation gear. And another prepping thing that I think is crucial is to be diverse, one, in your wealth. So trading things, metal, silver, work great. Go to antityrannynews.com/metal and check out Abagi Metals. Thank you all for tuning in, and stay tuned here on UCY.tv for all the great broadcasts. Hope that happens.